Well, I will have to say that it's a long time from the speaking to the people. So, possible to hear me?
Yeah, I think Shalya, maybe it's the interference. Maybe if you just sorry to ask you to just keep still. Maybe that's it, and just focus to wherever your microphone is. When you turn, we lose some speech, and it might be the connection as well. It was much better earlier on just now, so hopefully this will work out. Thanks.
Okay. So, as you can see that, there are four areas which I look onto the, implementing classroom management in my current school. So, I would like to divide that in four perspectives. That is, first will be the space, how you utilize space in your classroom management. Second will be on what are the rules or procedures you would like to implement in the classroom, right? Third, of course, the most important one will be assessing the milestone development and also identify the learning style of your children in the classroom. Well, the fourth one will be, usually Montessori classroom as mixed age classroom, how you can actually use the mixed age classroom case to your advantage in managing the classroom, right? So let's look at the first perspective. So the first one will be the space utilization. As we all know, we have preschool classroom where you have to do lots of routines. In fact, we don't have like designated routine where you have a separate cafeteria or separate, what we say, napping area. So pretty much you have to conduct so many routines in the same space of the classroom. Am I correct? Right. So in that sense, you have to do like circle time, breakfast, lunch, even napping in the same space. So that's how it's like a small preschool. Like in my school, it's pretty much the same thing. So it's very important for educators to actually list down what are the routines to be conducted in that particular space, right? And then it also has to have the chronological time of order so that children actually know so that children can actually adapt easily based on the routine you have in the classroom. And apart from there, when we say Montessori space should be very delightful. It has to have a good air ventilation into the classroom. And you need to have the nature in the classroom, where the plant, the pet station, so that we believe that school is the second home for the children, and it has to be the most comfortable place for the children to pursue their learning processes, right? So, um, so space and of course the section which we divide the space, like for example, there's for prepared environment, the sense section of like practical life, language, mathematics, even sensorial, circle time corner, a good choice, bad choices corner. You know, this kind of section has to be very distinct in the classroom. So and it helps the children to um, move around and freely and easily without any blockages, right? And of course, that's pretty much for the space utilization. So this is very important. Educators need to know in order to set up their classroom, to manage their classroom well, right? Second, routines and rules and procedures. When I say rules and procedures, like there are certain rules you would like to implement in your classroom. For example, if let's say there's a behavioral issues, how are you going to deal with that issues, right? And of course, as a Montessori teacher, we will never do anything in a commanding manner. We are just a guide, and of course, we always have to encourage the children to make their good choices. And if you make a bad choices, what are the consequences that will be faced? So educators have to repetitively talk to them on the pros and cons regarding the choices they make in the classroom, right? So for the for rules, pretty much like toilet ticket time, when they can have the toilet ticket time, when they have to raise their hands, or like for example, when they can actually have a whispering session. When you find the classroom, usually the goal is to achieve a very calm and pleasant Montessori classroom with teachers and children. But most of the time, in order to achieve, we have to come up with little rules in the sense like bell ringing rules or whispering session in some particular session on the day in the day, like for like 2 hours, where everyone whispers. This kind of fun way of rules which you can bring in your classroom to so that even children can have fun with the teachers, right? And then usually most of the rules are based on to control the behavior of the children, right? Because when the children behaves nicely in the classroom, then the delivery of the teaching is much easier, right? But when you see when you see like in the Montessori classroom is more of like you have to set this up from early stage itself, like you need to know that you are always not a commander teacher, where you put up the rules and you say you can't do this, you can't do that. You totally have to use reverse psychology with the children to ensure that they are perceiving the rules in positive manner. You have to be very kind, warm. At the same time, you have to be firm, but that doesn't mean you have to shout and scream on them. So you really need to carefully and thoughtfully set up the rules in the classroom work, right? So the third perspective which I would like to talk about is usually Montessori classroom are mixed age classrooms, right? So when there's mixed age classroom, like in my school, it's like we cater for age 3 to 6 years old, right? So it's very important for teacher and for an educator to know uh, what is the milestone development of each stage of the children in the classroom. So where for age 3, what is the milestone development? But age 4, what is milestone? This will actually benefit the educator to set up their classroom accordingly, and it has to be based on their skill level, where all the materials are prepared on the shelf accordingly, right? Again, apart from the milestone development, every child will have a different learning style, which can be categorized into 3 different categories. Um, I'm not sure if teachers or caregivers are very well aware of like the visual child, the kinesthetic child, and also the auditory child, right? So when we say visual, kinesthetic, the VEC system, with the VEC category, right? Visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. Every child perceives their information differently. Like for example, that is where we have to learn how we can deliver the teaching, and also we can tweak the method of teaching towards the children. Like some children uses the eyes, therefore the visual. That shows that their dominant learning style is visual. So they use eyes to process the information into their brain. So in that sense, you need to have more of teaching aids which is colorful, which is more attractive, so that they are attracted to it to learn, right? The second will be auditory child, where they use their ears, hearing, to perceive information into their brain. So singing, storytelling, sometimes they deliver the lesson using the music, and so that in that way they will be able to perceive information faster, right? And the kinesthetic children are the most, I would say difficult. It's quite challenging because they can't even stay put in the same chair for 5 minutes, and they need to like move around, and they run and they walk in the classroom. So that's where teachers have to be very creative. The educators have to be very creative in how to outline a method of teaching which can suit them, because they use tactile and body movement to perceive information. So this is what we pretty much I train my teachers to assess every child's dominant learning style before we actually do the lesson plan for them. So of course, sometimes it's very difficult for teacher to tailor make for every individual child, but you have to incorporate three different styles in your method of teaching. How you're going to deliver the lesson in the classroom, right? Maybe for more, what we say, more clarification, maybe I can come out with an example like, introduction to a triangle, right? So when you introduce to a visual chart, you introduce triangle by giving them pictures, lots of colors, and then they know that they see it more and they understand that it's triangle. Like for auditory child, you have to explain more that there are three angles, three vertices, three sizes with one face. They will and have a triangle song. They will be able to understand that. But how do you do it for kinesthetic children? So for kinesthetic children, maybe you can just draw a triangle on the floor, ask them to walk onto it. You see? You walk onto it, and then from the top to bottom with all the three angles, then they tend to get it. So it's all come with lots of trialing out what will be the best method for the children so that they can get more engaged in the classroom. Right. So the fourth perspective which I'll be looking at into is well, we can actually take advantage of the mixed age classroom where we can. It doesn't mean that teacher is the only one, educator is the only one who will be have to implement the rules and the kids have to follow. This is where you can actually have a team in your classroom itself, where you can nominate the bigger children actually to be the peacemakers, right? So you can work around with them, how you can actually work around with the whole classroom children to utilize whatever rules we have implemented, and then they can be the first point when children are having conflicts in the classroom, where they can actually refer to peacemaker before coming back to you, and the peacemakers actually can discuss it. So that actually teaches them leadership and responsibility in a very early age itself. Right. So I will say that this is pretty much a brief description. If you'd like to have more, I would be able to compile and then in a PowerPoint and everything, and can send it to the teachers if you like. But I would say that the classroom management is something there's no set rules. It comes with an experience. You have to do lots of trialing with it, and it is always a very personalized classroom. I would suggest the educators, you have to talk, you have to communicate, and then feel free to ask for help and from others, and also you have to be very observant on how the children actually react to whatever rules we have implemented, and then have the open mind of always changing. There's no set rules will actually deliver an effective classroom management.
Okay, thank you, Shalya. Your last point, you talked about PowerPoint and Elder. Actually, I am collaborating on behalf of MAM with Shalya to document all of this, and we are hoping to produce an ebook on classroom management. And this will be made available to all participants in this webinar. Just that you need to give us some time because we want to make it look nice and all that stuff. And it will be made available to you as soon as possible. So, Shalya, more or less, those are the four main points you were talking about. If you don't mind, I'd like to repeat them to make sure that everybody also agrees that I was listening to the 4 points. The first one is to do with space, right? To do with space, and that's to make sure that it's airy and there's allows for routines to take place. I mean, space will be really difficult for routines to take place if the space is tiny. So if you could list down what your needs are in that space in every single corner or space identified in your school, You list down what are the needs for that environment. Is it for specifically, or is it like a science lab? Is it a reading corner, so to speak? And then what are the needs there, and what is the chronological needs there? In fact, what some schools that because of space they swap spaces in between the different classes because that's how they manage. And the idea is to basically to make it easy for the child to adapt to it, right? Of course, okay, we have some interruption. Maybe Shalya, if you don't mind, while I'm talking, you can just mute up for a while. I think that might reduce the noise or whatever it is, and then you mute up, and then you can unmute when I'm finished. Okay, thanks, Shalya. So for the space, you said the mention that the air ventilation is so important. I wish I could have a school in sort of near a forest, yeah, and you just have no walls, that sort of thing. And there are some schools like this in Sabah Sarawak. If it wasn't for the COVID, ma'am would have wanted to do some trips there, bring everybody to have a look. They have some schools that are wall-less schools, basically, and so airy and everything, and they can do so much there. All right. The important for the children to have access to nature. Ideally, as you all know, the Montessori preschool in particular, they should have a door that opens up to a garden straight away, and not have to go through a corridor up and downstairs and go to the common garden of everybody else. Ideally, if you can, you have a door that the child can say, "I'm going outside for some fresh air," and you just open the door and the child can go there. That's ideally. So access to nature is very, very important because it's like a second home for the child, and a lot. That's why the dynamics are so different from the home and at the school, right? Your space for Montessori schools is divided into the 5 curriculum areas, and then where would you like to do your circle time? Where would be your rest time? If you have extracurricular activities like what do you call it, gymnastics and stuff, what happens, right? Because the children they need to adapt the most easiest way possible, but if they come and suddenly everything is changed, that doesn't sit well with them, right? Okay, because they have to see the transitions. So always when to move furniture around, ask the children to help you out so they know that things have been changed.